we're joined by Arthur Dong, Distinguished Teaching Professor at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. Good to see you again, Arthur. Thanks for taking time to chat.
Thanks, Sean, for having me on.
Okay, let's begin by focusing on Canada and the U.S. The Canadian Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister, in town to meet with Trump. Clearly, tension remains between those two leaders over a host of issues. Where do you think trade talks stand if we put all the theatrics aside?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues involved in this bilateral relationship between the United States and Canada. Canada being one of the largest trade partners with the United States in terms of bilateral trade, and a stalwart ally to the United States in every major war of the 20th century. Canada has fought side by side, shoulder to shoulder with American armed forces. So it's really puzzling as to why the Trump administration is imposing tariffs on Canada, given the sort of very close relationship, both economic as well as geostrategic, that Canada has had with the United States. Now, at least this is a good first signal that the new Prime Minister, newly elected Prime Minister, is, having the opportunity to have a personal, conversation with President Trump to get these discussions started.
Okay, let's pick up on that and the change from Justin Trudeau to Mark Carney. Will that make a trade deal perhaps more likely? Because Trump really turned the heat up in the Oval Office today, right in front of the new Prime Minister, saying the U.S. doesn't need Canada, Canada needs the U.S. Do you think that's true?
I think Mark Carney knows a lot about, Donald Trump's personality. He also, I think, understands that he's got to be very careful and diplomatic, given his sensitivities and his nature, not to be provocative, and to at least, sort of create a personal dialogue with him. And as you saw earlier, he opened up that briefing in front of the assembled press by praising Donald Trump. And so he kind of has a sense of his personality, and he certainly doesn't want to provoke him at this early stage in order to maintain an open dialogue so they can get down to brass tacks, so to speak, with the more important issues at hand.
Indeed. Now, the biggie, of course, a much-needed agreement and an end to the trade war between the two largest economies on Earth. What about China? Any chance that Beijing reaches out first, something Trump dearly wants?
Well, I mean, it was refreshing to hear breaking news as you announced that Treasury Secretary Bessent seems to be and has announced that he will be appearing in Switzerland to begin a dialogue with some Chinese officials over, the trade war and the tariffs that separate the United States and China. So I think at least that is in a sense, an optimistic and encouraging development. But there are many, many issues that stand between the United States and China. And it's important, as markets are waiting with bated breath, to see some kind of progress in a forward direction between China and the United States.
Yeah, China has been crystal clear, saying there are no winners in a trade war. And it has its Belt and Road initiative and a bevy of trade deals with other nations. However, the Chinese Foreign Ministry saying a few hours ago, as we just talked about, that the Vice Premier is going to visit Switzerland later this week, and they sit down and at least maybe crack the window open a bit for trade affairs with his U.S. counterpart. Let's dig into that a little bit more. How significant is this? Is this the breaking of the ice? How do you think the markets are going to react? And where do you see this going?
I would see this as a positive gesture in terms of the markets reacting, because, we're talking about the Treasury Secretary, one of the most important and highest officials within the executive office. And so the fact that, the Trump administration is sending one of their key economic leaders to have a discussion with some high-level Chinese leaders is always going to be viewed positively. And I would say that markets are looking forward to these types of opportunities. And so, but the markets have been jittery, as you expressed earlier in today's show, and they're certainly expressing their displeasure with the impending sort of supply shocks that are coming as, more and more companies are rejecting the resupply, of their products, and meaning that American consumers are going to be facing shortages in a matter of days.
Yeah, and there's so much uncertainty. And the Trump administration saying new trade deals are coming, perhaps this week. And Trump has said that the U.S. is in talks with India, South Korea. But what do we really know?
We really don't know nothing. I mean, really don't know much, because is this more posturing, or is this more, a lot of talk and no action? And so markets and the world is waiting to see some positive, affirmation that some real progress is being made on the trade front.
Yeah, and clearly the clock is ticking. Small businesses are hurting. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is worried, and there have been lawsuits filed to stop Trump from doing this. How much time do you think Donald Trump has to really come up with some significant deals before the heat is really turned up on the White House?
Well, if you talk to some those that are involved in the logistics industry as well as the supply chain industry, they're saying that in a matter of weeks, 4 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks, the store shelves will start to be bare, and so American consumers are in for a supply shock, as well as many industries that are dependent on sourcing their parts and components from foreign nations.
Wow. Okay. One final question. How is the administration balancing these, what they hope are short-term economic disruptions and concerns about a recession, some say we're already there, with its long-term trade goals? Is it realistic to think that auto part manufacturers are going to build factories here and get them up and running in a very short amount of time?
Yeah, Sean, that's a really important point, because you just can't build these factories overnight. It doesn't take months, it takes years. And as a result, I think the Trump administration is courting political suicide, because as the economy goes into a tailspin, unemployment starts to creep up and prices start to escalate. All these are very foreseeable outcomes if this trade war continues on its current path.